Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, Janet Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, or the Secretary of Treasury of the United States of America, has just said out loud in an interview what I am sure they don't want you to know. And it's pretty funny how they say these things when they're being interviewed overseas. I believe this interview took place in the continent of Africa. I forgot exactly what country within Africa she was in. Yellen warns of debt ceiling catastrophe for the U.S. and beyond. And I did a video sometime last week where I said that there would be no catastrophe, that the United States government does not have to raise the debt ceiling because we take in enough money in order to pay our bills. The reason they need to raise the debt ceiling is so that they can stay in power. Because, ladies and gentlemen, that deficit that they run, all of those expenditures that they spend on their pet projects, that's what keeps them in power. Fiat currency is what keeps the government in power. Let me explain this to you, because you may ask, well, isn't it fiat currency that they're taking from us when they tax us? Yes, it is. However, that taxed fiat currency that comes out of your pockets, you earned that into existence, which means that that value that fiat currency has, it's value that you actually put into it. So if you go to a job and you work 40 hours, let's say, and let's say you make $1,000 a week in 40 hours, and they take from you, let's say 20%. That 20% of your income that they took from you, that they extorted from you, you worked for that. So there is value in that money. When they are allowed to increase the debt ceiling, it's exactly what it sounds like. They are borrowing. They want to increase their ability to borrow. When the debt ceiling can no longer be increased, they can no longer borrow, i.e., they can no longer create money out of thin air that has no value and therefore has to steal the value from the dollars that you earned into existence. This is why, to them, to the government, it is a catastrophe if they cannot raise the debt ceiling. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the fiat currency they collect from you that you earned into existence does not give them any additional power. It only gives them the power to pay for those things that are mandated by law instead of them having to pay for their pet projects and keep stealing our wealth by printing money out of thin air. I really hope that makes sense because that is exactly what they do. Let me go ahead and read to you a little bit that I highlighted here. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told Axios she is nervous about the U.S. defaulting on its debt and cautioned that Americans likely will face a scary and spiraling recession if Congress doesn't raise a debt ceiling this summer. And I'm not sure why she is nervous, ladies and gentlemen, because just a few years ago, U.S. Federal Reserve Janet Yellen said on Tuesday that she does not believe that there will be another financial crisis for at least as long as she lives. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's hope that her health is well. They say thanks largely to reforms of the banking system since the 2007 and 9 crash. And what was the major reform that they had since then? I believe they got rid of Glass-Steagall, which now means that banks, since then, it means that banks can pretty much take your deposits and do whatever they want with it. They can gamble it, they can buy their own stock backs in order so that they can get their big bonuses, etc. Quote, would I say there will never be another financial crisis? You know, probably that would be going too far. But I do think we're much safer, and I hope that it will not be in our lifetimes, and I don't believe it will be, she said. So obviously, she is wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason that she's saying there that she doesn't think that there will be another financial crisis is because during the time that she said that, the spigots were on. There was money just flowing like crazy, just like it has been happening for the last almost 20 years or so. And here in this recent interview, she continues to say, of course, it makes me nervous. It would be devastating. It's a catastrophe, meaning that if we could not increase the debt ceiling. Now, look, I'm not so naive as to think that they're not going to raise the debt ceiling. They are. But I want as many people to understand that they don't have to. And that the reason they have to is because it's the only way that they can keep their power, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, their power, our overlords, as they like to see themselves. In the event of a default, which we would not default, and I'm going to show you really quick, we'll have a financial crisis, she said, and I believe we would have a recession in the United States. Well, I believe we already have a recession, and a lot of other economists, not that I am, but a lot of economists do. And this is the key point here that you probably won't hear on the mainstream media. And I can't say that you won't because I don't watch the mainstream media. But here it says, if the government were unable to issue new debt, the economy will go into a tailspin. And she says, quote, I highlighted in red, spending would have to decline to match tax revenues, meaning that they would have to live within their means. She's saying it clear for everyone to hear. But many people will not listen because they will go along with the fear tactics that they're using. Catastrophe. Right? It's going to be a catastrophe. No, it won't. It just means that the government will relinquish its power and the people will regain it. Because the government will only be allowed to spend money that was earned into existence, instead of money that was printed out of thin air, in which case the value that that money gets is from your money that you've already earned, therefore diminishing your purchasing power. That is what that means, ladies and gentlemen. The fear might run loose, making consumers too scared to spend, a scenario Yellen called psychological consequences that could further impact spending and deepen a recession. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what happens when people stop spending money and saving money? We have somewhat of a deflationary event. What does that mean? It means that the prices of things will go down because it's called demand destruction. You know, if people stop spending on certain items, the retailers, they want to move those items, so they're going to bring the prices down. Go to a car lot that is full, that has its vehicles overpriced, and nobody buys them. What do they eventually do? The prices come down. It's somewhat deflationary, and the market adjusts. It finds its equilibrium. However, if the government has its way, it would continue to print money if it can borrow more money, making the prices of everything continue to go up. Deflation is one of the things that governments hate most. You know why? Because as prices go down and you pay less for things, your dollars are worth more, the less taxes that they collect. I want to show you one last thing so that you can see how it is that we don't need to raise the debt limit, ladies and gentlemen. I finally found a chart that is 2023's mandatory spending. Okay, so check this out. Right here it says interest costs will be the third largest category of the budget in 2023. Incredible. So here is mandatory spending for you. Social Security, mandatory spending, 1.4 trillion roughly. Medicare, almost 900 billion. Interest we have to pay, 765 billion. Defense is discretionary. And you know what? I believe that we can get by with $400 billion for defense as long as we cut down on the military bases that we have all over the world, which exceed 800. Cut down on those, bring most of our boys and girls home and put them on the border, and we can cut this number to probably about 400 billion with no problem whatsoever. Non-defense discretionary, that's cut out. That is all of the pet projects that they have, all of the pork that they have, and all of these 4,000 page, 5,000 page bills that is supposed to be for the climate. But for some reason, there's pork in there or earmarks in there that say that they have to study how the fish in Japan mate after they've taken cocaine. Imagine that, ladies and gentlemen. I just made that up, but you understand. That's how ridiculous it is, some of the money that they spend that you and I earn and put into the taxes. All right, so Medicaid, that's a mandatory expense, and other mandatory expenses, 600 billion, for a total of roughly $4.6 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, that is about what the government takes in taxes. The government has enough of our tax money to get by on all of the mandatory spending. So those of you out there that are on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those things that we've paid, those are benefits, all right? They're not entitlement. Those are benefits. all of those things that we paid into all our lives and then expect to get something back in return for all of that money that we paid in for. You don't have to worry about that. You are going to continue to get that. It is a mandatory expenditure by law. They are trying to put fear into the American people so that the American people will be like, yes, let's go ahead and increase the debt limit because we need to. We don't need to. Government needs to, because it's what gives them their power. I hope that you got something out of this, and I hope to see you later on during our live stream. I'm going to see if I can put this video up. If not, it'll be up after the live stream. God bless every one of you. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to every one of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper, and I'm out. God bless America.